Oh, hey. It's my handkerchief here. I just looking over. It was a gift from a friend, a guy named Othello. I don't know if you've heard of him or not, but apparently this guy likes to give handkerchiefs to his friends, and I don't quite understand what the deal is. I was just about to read his play, this play Othello. Um, People told me not to accept that handkerchief, but I don't know. I kind of needed it. So, hey, what's a silly old snot rag anyway, right? So this play Othello. I'm gonna look over your head right now. I know it's rude, but that's where my notes are, and I need those. First recorded 1604. This play Othello. The main source for Othello was the novella called the Hectomythi, written in 1565 by the Italian author Cinthio. Another minor source was Leo Africanus's A Geographical History of Africa, which was translated into English by a guy named John Pori in 1600. Leo Africanus's text was written in 1526. This describes the Barbary coast, which is like modern Morocco, Algeria, and Tunisia, and the gold trading kingdoms of West Central Africa. So an interesting bit of source material there that makes up our play. What else? Othello, that's the subtitle. The subtitle of the play is important. The Moor of Venice. In some ways, some critics have called this an oxymoron. There's no such thing as a Moor of Venice. There's no such thing. No Moors are of Venice, they might have said. Even Cassio in the play is criticized by Rodrigo for being an outsider because he is from Florence. He's a Florentine. Let's spit that out of my mouth. There is this sense of rivalry even with Cassio as a man from Florence. The Moors, who were they? The Moors were a people group native to northwest Africa, Morocco region, Mauritania. Historically, a black Othello has received less sympathy than an Arab Othello. That's in different productions. Kind of interesting. Through much of the 19th century, it was very lowbrow to talk about Othello and race. Colorblindness was essential in this kind of era. Othello was seen in the 19th century and portrayed often, interpreted, if you will, as an everyman, not a man distinct because of his race. Now, times have changed. The racial tensions of our era are much higher, and it's more interesting to talk about these things. Another character, Iago. This is another word for James, or Saint James of Spain, who was the great conqueror of the Moors. Seeing the connection there, perhaps. Now, Iago is a famous villain. There are some who claim that Iago is a motiveless character. He has no motive for what he does to Othello. A guy named Coleridge, great poet and critic of Shakespeare's, described Othello as having a motiveless malignity. I like that phrase. A motiveless malignity, that he just was bad for no stinking reason. Just disgusting, like a psychopath, I guess you would say in another way. A guy named Stephen Greenblatt, another great critic, and by critic I mean one who writes about Shakespeare and describes and analyzes Shakespeare, right, deeply. Stephen Greenblatt, a contemporary Shakespearean writer or critic, says that Shakespeare's plays abound in strategic opacity. This idea that motivational clarity lacks in many plays. There is a lacking of clarity at times, but at other times you have clarity. And so how do we feel about Iago? It's not always made clear. And that's kind of strategic, according to Stephen Greenblatt. There is a comedic framework that kind of works with Othello. A comedic framework, which is kind of ironic, right? Because this play is dark. This play is scary. This play is freaky. This guy Iago and this guy Othello, they turn into monsters. Wife-murdering monsters. It's not a pretty ending, right? So Iago is comedic in some ways. He's witty. He likes to banter. He's intensely perverse. He uses a lot of sexuality in his language, and these things are normally found in the comedies. And so there's a bit of some comedic devices going on here with Iago's character. It's also a comedic device is plotting. This idea of plotting, of creating a plot to trap someone in that plot. And with comedies, it's usually kind of funny. Nothing really funny about what Iago does. For no apparent reason. Well, or what does he say? I was passed up for a promotion. I was passed up for a promotion by Othello, so I'm going to destroy his life, and I'm going to trick him into killing his wife. Really? So you have this comedic device used in a very tragic sense. Tragedies, along this line, tragedies are less about human agency. Comedy are more often about human agency. And agency is this ability to do things, right? To work, to act, to make